This is a quick audio recording for you to just share my thoughts with you regarding the questions that you asked me. So let me go back to the questions here on my phone. So the first one was, why are there so many garbage projects out there, and what do you do to avoid these? Share some insights into what you do that's so different from the others in the field. Well, the first thing is this, that there are projects that didn't pencil out over the last decade or so that people had done some underwriting for. Maybe they'd done some permitting and zoning, but the projects really weren't interesting to people. Nobody was willing to fund them. And so what has happened is that the random carcasses of these basically dead projects have floated up to the surface because opportunity zone money is considered silly money. Investors basically are not making prudent decisions. All they're focused on is, hey, I'm going to be investing in a brand new shiny looking building and I'm not going to pay tax. That's all they think. They don't worry about the fact that these buildings may be built in the wrong areas and their principal could be at risk. So we do see a large number of projects that can only be defined as garbage projects that are being peddled out there. What do you do to avoid these? Well, we basically look at the demographics of the area, the demographics of the census tract that this particular property is going to be built on. And there are 5 key areas to look at: population growth, job growth, income growth, home price growth, and crime. Obviously not crime growth, but crime reduction, right? Crime trends. Those are the 5 keystones of what we are looking at. The last piece of it, which is not demographic, is related to real estate. And so we look at whether there's going to be a lot of other construction going on in that area. We want to be in a Goldilocks zone. We never want to be the only construction project in that designated census tract. But we also don't want to be one of 20, because we don't want that small area to get flooded. But if there's a significant number of projects going in there, that makes all the sense in the world to go in there if the demographics are exactly right. Now, when I talked about demographics, I don't want to be non-specific. I want to be specific. So for each of those 5 areas that I just mentioned, we have specific ranges. What we are seeing is people just saying, oh, if there's population growth, we're good. No, that's not true. Population growth is there in most of the country because our birth rate is higher than our death rate. But what you want is a certain minimum amount of population growth, a certain minimum amount of job growth, a certain minimum amount of income growth. And so what I'm not seeing is other people basically doing these benchmarks. I'm happy to publish our benchmarks, and I think that the vast majority of our projects, if not all of them, will match every single benchmark, if not the vast majority of the benchmarks. So why do you think that only a certain percentage of designated opportunity zones will improve? Well, the honest answer is this, that the government had good intentions. This is really about social justice. This is about improving depressed areas. But the problem is, when you have large amounts of money coming in, that institutional equity is looking at return. They're looking at risk. And so we believe, and from what we are seeing, this belief is being proven correct. Right now, a very small percentage of these opportunity zones are even being considered by institutional capital, because they're saying, I'm not going to go into an area where income levels are $30,000 in median household income. There's no way anybody there can afford to pay for this. And there's no way that that area will lift enough for people to be paying my $1,700, $1,600 in rents in my beautiful new building that I'm building. So a lot of people are really staying away from these distressed zones and instead focusing on zones that are slightly better. Maybe not as good as the ones that we are focusing on, but slightly better. So we think that the vast majority of the money is going to go into a smaller percentage of these opportunity zones. Data is all crucial when it comes to opportunity zones. Data is the key. The absolute key to opportunity zone success is the use of data analytics, whether it's real estate data, like knowing the occupancy of the area and knowing the number of projects that are going in. And then the second piece of it is the demographics data. If we don't do those pieces well, this is not going to work out. Now let's talk about what's important in choosing a developer. Well, the key thing is you do not want a developer that the only thing that they've done before is they've gone vertical, they've built buildings, and then as soon as they're done, they've sold those buildings. three things that we look for in developers. Number one is we want developers that typically will not sell their buildings as soon as they get an occupancy permit. They do go through the lease up process. So they basically like to sell their buildings when they're leased up. Second, we're looking for developers that actually like to hold some of their buildings. Hopefully they hold all of them, but that's very hard to find. But we want developers that have actually said, about a third of our building, half of our buildings, we actually like to hold them. Why? Because with opportunity zones, the developer has to be partnered with us for 10 years. We cannot sell the buildings for 10 years. And so we want developers that have the systems, processes, manpower, people that basically manage the holding of properties, not just the building of properties. And third, we are looking for developers that are very deeply vested in their project. They're putting their own personal money into the project. So there's a lot of skin in the game, and they're vested in these projects for a while. So some of the projects that we are working on, the developers were already working on them before that area became an opportunity zone. So they were already interested, they were already penciling it out, and the opportunity zone is now basically just a cherry on top of an already very delicious cake. Let's see. That, I think, are all of my random thoughts on perils. I want people to understand that opportunity zones are both extremely profitable and also risky, and they need to